right, so we're here with Luther Berry from LB3D Designs joining us, the creator of Evil Entities. He has the amazing figures, busts, statues, wall hangers, and ornaments. And his website is right here. And thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
For people that aren't familiar, got a few of my favorites here.
Oh, yeah.
Got this one signed. Got this one here signed. And you hand make all these, right? Yourself?
Yeah, so it's a combination of hand painting. I do a lot of 3D design. So I got introduced to 3D printing back in 2012, something like that. I went to work for a 3D printing company. I was a director of art and design for a little over 4 years. So it kind of, my background was traditional art. I got into 3D printing, realized that the technology was really getting better and better and better. And now, you know, back in the early 2000s, things like resin printing that you see in households today didn't exist. You had to, you know, you're spending $80,000 on a piece of equipment back then. And now you can buy a really good, pretty good desktop printer resin style, which is really high resolution for a few $100, which changed the game for a lot of artists, because a lot of us that were traditional designers, I got into 3D printing. I went back to school late in life. So I got my degree in computer animation, was exposed to character design and creation through softwares like Autodesk Maya and what I use primarily, which is ZBrush. And so the sculpting side of it changed, where you used to do, you know, modeling clay and then cold castings. You're now able to design in 3 dimensions in a computer system, which is still the sculpting process. But it's, for me, because it's so refined, it gets, you know, the more you do it, the faster you can get. It allows me to go from concept to creation to product in hand in a fraction of the time that it used to take to do that traditionally.
Sure. Yeah. A lot less messy too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, some of the printing can get messy, but it's not, you're right. It's not nearly as time consuming. The big thing is the time, because the faster you can go from your thought process to a product in hand, the more you can put more product out there for your fan base. And that's what this is all about for me.
You're a fan of horror, obviously.
Yeah, I've been a fan of horror my whole life. I really, getting into this almost 8 years ago, I didn't realize the fan base. I live in South Carolina, so horror here isn't like a big thing. Once I got into this and started meeting people and the fan base that I have for just my company, I've made tons of friends through this platform. They're almost like a second family to me. I had no idea of the loyalty factor that you have with horror fans in particular. It's pretty crazy, especially when I go to shows. When we've been shows, I'll see people will see me in an elevator and speak to me. I've never met them in person, but they know me from photos and then seeing me in different photos with, you know, where I'm displaying a product or something like that. It blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's super humbling.
Yeah. The horror community is awesome.
It's fantastic.
It is like another family. You're right. So this is your anniversary coming up.
Yeah, April 28th, which is my birthday. I will be 49, and the company will be 8.
Wow.
I left the company. What's that?
You do this full time?
Yeah, this is all I do.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So go ahead, you were saying?
I opened up in 2017 on my birthday. I left the company I was with, the 3D printing company. And the horror thing wasn't my initial go-to. I was actually I was a designer, so I was working for companies all over the United States as a subcontractor, mostly organic character style modeling for different people, because most of the time when you have a 3D printing company or something like that needs organic modeling, most of those companies, all they have are CAD designers, which are engineers basically. But when they need to do a statue, it's really hard to do a statue in AutoCAD. And so I was actually selling myself as a designer to all these different companies all over the United States. Late that year, it was around October, November. I've been sculpting horror stuff along, the whole time I was in school. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna throw some of this stuff on Etsy and see what happens. And I had a little mini bust of Reagan from The Exorcist, and I did a statue. It was the year that the new It film came out. And so I did Pennywise and a little miniature Georgie with a severed arm. And I put them on Etsy just on a whim, and sold like $800 worth of figures and statues in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I was like, wait a minute, what is going on here? So over the course of 2017 to 2018, I started doing more and more of that on Etsy, still doing subcontract work. By the end of 2018, I had completely stopped doing any subcontract work. I just didn't have the time, the bandwidth. I didn't have enough bandwidth. The fan base was asking for more and more stuff. And the figure line came along. It was pretty crazy. I got commissioned to do some NECA mods. So one guy wanted, he wanted to convert a NECA figure into one of the characters from the It film, the one that had the boils all over his face. Okay. And so he sent me I think it was a character from the TV show Preacher that NECA made. And I did a mod of it. And I was like, this is kind of cool. So I did the same thing with one of the Jason figures I converted to Jeepers Creepers, and people loved them. Like we sold a bunch of them. Everybody was wanting them, and so I was like, this is weird, because I'd been doing most of my work was commission based in miniature bust. I was doing like 1/6 scale mini bust, and I never really gotten into the figure thing. I met a guy in New Jersey. His name's Timothy, and Tim told me, he was like, man, you should do like the old Mego style horror characters. And I said, well, I don't really know how I'd go about doing that. So I had to do some research, and I found a source to do base bodies. They were down in Florida. And I think the first 2 figures we launched, I did Mr. Barlow from Salem's Lot, one of my favorite characters of all time. Absolutely. And Tall Man from Phantasm. And they sold out. And I was like, okay, this is something new, because what was happening was when you're open a business, you kind of just start throwing things against the wall to see what sticks. Right. It's how you figure out what your thing is. And it took me a couple of years of working and designing for other people and to realize that the fan base was starving for new stuff from films that really never got a lot of love. And so that's kind of what my focus has been ever since. In fact, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll email we have a client list that's on an email list, and I'll put out there 6 or 7 characters and let the fans vote, and their top 3 is what we'll do the following month. It's just I feel like that is more important than me doing a character that I particularly like, because I'm not doing this for me. Right. This is all about the horror fans. I've not made one figure. I don't have any of my figures. When I first started, I was trying to keep like the prototype, and what happened is they would sell out, and then someone would call me and go, man, I can't believe I missed that figure. I'm like, look, I got the prototype. If you want it, I'll sell it to you. And so I have nothing really here other than what my prototypes are, and then those are always gone. So that's wild. But I love it. Like it's very, very humbling, because there's characters that I've done that were challenging, but the result from the reaction I get from the fan base is always worth it. So,
but like, I can see the figures, but like, how long does something like this take to do?
The statues. So if I'm doing a figure design, it really depends on the character. There's some figures that I can do the head sculpt, and usually it's an accessory or hands or some kind of difference, and then their clothing. Originally, I was able to source clothing and mod them and do things like that. But as I've gotten into more and more of these specialty characters, I've had to teach myself how to design for, like clothing design patterns. I use a company that does dye sublimation. So if I need a specific look to a character's costume, like we just did the officially licensed Madman Mars and Betsy combos. So his whole jumpsuit, I use that company to do. They actually I designed the jumpsuit in Photoshop and then replicated on a sheet and then they actually dye the pattern right onto the material. I get it in, cut it, sew it, assemble it. So it's kind of an assembly line process depending on what I'm working on. But big statues like that, where it's full body and there's all these customs, they could take anywhere from one day, depending on how complex it is, up to a week.
Wow.
And especially when you're getting into things like the bigger bust, because a lot of my fan base doesn't even know that I do 1-to-1 scale bust. Because everything that I advertise typically is the figures. Every now and then I'll throw something up that someone said, hey, you can post this if you want to. But when someone commissions me to do something like that, I don't post that unless they allow it, because it's their private kind of commission. So I'm not going to throw it out there unless they say it's okay. But all in all, it's the time frame is really always dependent on the character. So doing a character like Tall Man, Tall Man's in a suit, it's a head basically, and then the accessories, I can usually turn that around in a half a day to get the design work and stuff like that done before I go into production. But then you get into something like Rawhead Rex, where it's several pieces that have to be designed. And then the jumpsuit that we made for that it was made of a stretch material so that I could actually get it, to form fit his muscular body. And then, so there's a lot of detail that goes into all those little pieces. I think the hardest one I've done to date, we do some special commissions for the Horror Collective, the group on Facebook.
Absolutely.
And
Lauren and Chris.
We did they're great. We did Kane Hodder. Yes. And we did him as the SWAT character from Jason Goes to Hell. And then we did the Uber Jason. Yes. And the Uber Jason, the Uber Jason was probably the most challenging piece because it was an array of assembled parts that were then glued down to his jumpsuit that was designed. So his jumpsuit was the same thing. It's a dye sublimation done on a lycra material so that it's like spandex. So it sticks when you put it on, it's form fitting to that body. And then all of the armor is glued down individually. So there's something there's 40 pieces to his armor. And I think we sold 15, was it 15 sets or 20 sets on that?
15.
Yeah. So it's 15 times 30.
Wow.
So just the assembly part of that is very time consuming.
And what about the packaging?
What's that?
Do you outsource the packaging in the art?
Well, the clamshells, yes. The art cards I design in house, and then I use a local print shop to do them for me.
Oh, okay. I actually have one of the private commissions. This is the Bloody Roy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I got this from this is a 1-of-1.
Yeah.
That I got from Lauren. I don't know the story behind it, but I'm very happy to have this one. I'm a huge Friday
that was a fun fan. One. He was at Creature Feature Weekend a couple of years ago, and that's why I did. Or it might have been last year he was there. But that's why I did that figure. I usually try to give one to the actors, and then we'll sell a few at the show. Something that correlates to a character that they've played.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say that I had that or not, but
oh no, that's fine.
But I love it. It's awesome. What would I say? Oh, so what's your personal favorite horror franchise, or one of them?
My favorite film, horror, and it's probably cheesy to a lot of people, but was The Exorcist. I've always been more into supernatural. I love werewolves and vampires. Supernatural is probably the thing that got me most growing up. Movies like the Amityville 2, The Possession, those types of films kind of mess with me as a kid.
Did you see The Curse?
The Curse
with what's his name?
Recent?
No, it's old. It's like 80s.
Oh, probably so, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. There's like 5 different movies called The Curse now.
Oh, right. That one really messed me up when I was little.
The Exorcist, I think the thing that I love about that film personally, and it's the thing that's different from that film versus the horror, supernatural horror that you see today, is that for the first probably hour and 15 minutes, all you do is character develop. you get invested in the characters that so much that when things start happening, you care.
Exactly.
So this is the difference between doing that, and I'll be the first to tell you, the Salem's Lot film from this year. I wasn't a hater.
Okay.
However, I understand why it got hated on, because you took a film that should have been 4 hours long,
right,
and compressed it to 2 hours and 15 minutes, and you can't tell that story in 2 hours.
No.
What ends up happening is it's so fast paced that everybody's like, "What is going on? How do these people not like?" They just agree that this is happening. So I get it.
Right.
I understand that. I was really happy that they paid homage to the original Barlow design. It's one of the reasons why I did the Barlow, because I just thought we've done a couple different versions of Barlow in figure form. He was one of the first figures I ever did. We came back and did a re-release with him and a new sculpture with Ben Mears. That was last year, a very limited run of those. And when I saw this film, I saw the Barlow. I was like, I got to do that. And it was a challenge, because trying to find imagery of him in his entire costume was very difficult. I ended up having to go to the actors page on Instagram and kind of sneak some of his photos so I could get some good reference. But
let's check it out.
Yeah. See if you can.
My man, Boogeyman Ben would appreciate this.
Oh yeah, Ben's already secured.
I always send him to you. Yep.
Yeah.
Salem's Lot. That looks great. Wow, look at the detail on that. That's crazy. So that's not that's pre-order right now.
Yeah, this is on
sold out, right? Or no?
We're selling him still.
Please. Okay.
We just released those. I think it was right before Christmas or something like that. So there's some available for sure. We're also
and those
in
other
release,
beauties.
we're doing Heidi.
That's amazing. And
again, this is this garment that we're using for her sweater and the pants, the same concept. So we're dye sublimation. We stitch those here in house and then do the assemblies. And the last one we did, and we're going to do another version of her. I wanted to release this just because we've always done the vampired out versions of things first. Is Santanico Pandemonium from Dusk Till Dawn.
Yep.
We did so far we've done Richie, Sex Machine, now her, and I have a design that I'll be working on for her in the Salma Hayek look, where she's sexy instead of just nasty snake looking vampire.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And those are limited to how many?
So I think we've got these set at 40. We try not to go. Typically, if it's a super, super popular character, we'll run the limits to 60. I usually don't go any higher than that unless it's officially licensed. Like the Madman 2-pack sets, we limited to 100. We have 30 of those, and they're all in the same number sequence. So if you order an autographed one or you get a standard one, it's not like there's 30 separate autographed versions. We're only doing 100 total. So we have, I think we did the first 15 autographs right before Christmas. The second wave was released right after Christmas. And those are signed by Paul Ehlers, who was
awesome. Madman. Yeah.
And then the other 70 are just standards. They're the same figures. It's the same 2-pack. One's just autographed, one's not. If you see Paul at a show or something, you can always get yours autographed there.
Is this the first one you've done autographed?
What's that?
Is this the first ones you've launched autographed?
No, we did. So a few years back, we'd done. It was an indie film that starred Bill Oberst Jr. and Kane Hodder. It was called "The Good Things Devils Do," and they signed some figures for us for that too. Nice. We've done. We did a release with Jonathan Breck.
The Creeper.
That was a few years ago. Those were 18-inch Creeper figures, and he signed all of the COAs for us.
Okay.
But yeah, I work with a handful of these guys. Jonathan, we're actually talking about doing a 1/6 scale, but I want to make sure that one has got all the bells and whistles that we can have for it. And he's already agreed to do that. If we get that going, we'll work with him again. He's a super nice guy.
Yeah, he is. That'd be great.
Yeah. We actually, I was going to show you that we had done. So a few years back, we actually did a job for Jonathan. I'm going to zoom in so you can kind of see this. don't know if you can pick that up. Can you see that good?
Yeah, that looks great. Wow, that looks amazing. That's awesome. Damn. That's really good. I imagine that'll go pretty quick.
So that was actually made for Jonathan.
Oh, that was a commission. Okay.
Yeah, so the first job that I ever did with him was that job.
Oh, okay.
And then afterwards is when I worked with him on the commission for our stuff that, you know, we were selling to fan base. We actually do figures for Eileen Dietz, who played Pazuzu. Mm-hmm. And I work with several people like that. It's so they can, you know, a lot of times when you're at a show, it's typically just 8.5 by 11 photos that they'll sell. But some of these guys try to get into some merchandising for themselves too. And when we can make that work or get it licensed or do what we need to do, it's all great for me. And I usually try to work with them well as far as their price point so they can make some money. But all in all, it's I do whatever I can because I just enjoy working it. It doesn't really matter to me.
But that's pretty cool. You're working with people from your favorite movie, your favorite horror movie. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the figures, the challenging figures. I think that the figures that I enjoyed personally the most were the ones that we did. I did some originals, the classic monster line and the legendary monsters. And the classic monsters, my oldest son got on me because I'd had concept art and stuff like that of those for a long time, of my iterations of Dracula and the Wolfman. And he told me one day, because I'd been selling the figures for a few years, like, you should make your own figures. And I'm like, yeah, well, you know, most of the people that collect are collecting based on a film. And so I just did it. I went ahead. I released, I think the first 2 figures were Dracula and the Wolfman. And the fan base, actually, we sold quite a few of those. I was really proud of that. One, humbled, and it's excited because it wasn't just about the movie, you know, this particular movie. It's my own take on all these guys. And so now we've got Dracula, Wolfman, Frankenstein, Gillman, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And then in the Legends line, we started with Medusa. Awesome. And that's my personal kind of design concepts, which I think are really cool.
That's awesome.
It was funny. I saw the trailer for the new Wolfman, and the premise of the story is very much like the backstory that I had on my Wolfman character from 2 years ago, which is funny.
That's pretty wild. Like, maybe they ripped you off.
Different characters completely, you know, different names. I get that, but it was just weird that the thought process behind what I was doing with that ended up in a film, and it's the same kind of backstory in a sense. Not exact, but it was just neat to see.
That's pretty wild. Maybe they ripped you off.
Nah, I don't think so.
When did the packaging change from the black and silver to the yellow and the red?
What's that?
You know how the logo used to be
so
black
it originally started with the red and yellow. And then what I decided to do was, one year I was going how I was going to dictate what year you got these in, was I was going to change the front art to black and white one year. It might be blue, you know. Well, when I did that, fans were like, man, I like the old design so much better. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just go back to that. Because the whole idea was to do a year like that. And then if you had the silver packaging, that was from this particular year. And then it would have been a different color for another year. But I was like, you know what? Everybody likes the old design, so we're going to stick with it. And
do you remember your first action figure?
Yeah. The very first one I ever did, as far as for the design for Evil Entities, was the Barlow.
The Barlow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, Barlow kicked it off, and back then we were only doing like 30 units, and that expanded because the fan base has grown, and I hate it because sometimes even when I do 60 units, I get people call it was the Art the Clown. We did a 2 iterations of that, and it was a total of 60 units. And I get people reaching out to me all the time about that. We do plan on doing that in probably a 1/6 scale at some point this year.
That'd be awesome.
And on that one, what I thought about doing was, instead of giving you the option of either or, is just including the bloody variant suit into the package. So
that's pretty smart.
If you want to change him and have him nasty, you can do that.
That's cool. Is there any like bucket list characters that you still want to do that you haven't gotten to?
I mean, man, I used to have a list, and I had like 400 characters on there. We've done, since I did it, I added it up the other day. Since 2018, basically, is when I really started the Evil Entities line, even though the company was open a year before that. 200 characters.
Wow.
You know, it's insane. Some of them I forgot that we had even done, you know, like the Video Dead. We did a series of the 5 zombies. I mean, that's 5 character designs.
Wow.
I did a short release of Superman 2 last year. Those were private commissions of the 3 Kryptonians and the Christopher Reeve version of Superman. We've done the Incredible Hulk from the 70s show with Nicholas Hammond's Spider-Man. Those kind of things I really still love, like going back to that nostalgic era of my time growing up. You know, kind of ages me when I say that. But, you know, I like doing characters like that, because even though some of it's not horror, it's it resonates with the same fan base, because they grew up with all those shows. So
yeah, it triggers the memories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the Night of the Comic cop.
Yeah. And see, now the Night of the Comet, we're probably going to go back to some of the female characters from that film.
Awesome.
Because again, sometimes I'll do these characters not knowing how the fan base is going to react. Sometimes I'll do voting, and then you kind of know, okay, this is what everybody wants. So I think the thing that's caught me was we did 13 Ghosts. I've done so far Angry Princess, the Jackal, Juggernaut, and the Hammer. And those have sold really well. Most of those have sold out. But then I get people all the time, are you doing any more 13 Ghosts? And so yeah, that line we're going to continue with more. I think the Pilgrimess is on our list for next.
That's great.
And then 31, we did Doomhead, and we just did Psycho Head. And we're going to continue with that round too, because I know that you know, some people are not Rob Zombie fans, and that's fine. I understand, like, there's that part never bothers me. Like, everybody gets an opportunity to like whatever they want. I do that. Like, I wasn't a big fan of the Nosferatu remake. We just went to the theater to see that. I wasn't a big fan. I understand the concept of the character design. I'm just not a fan of the look. I get that it's accurate and all those things to the book. I just personally wasn't a fan. However, I know there's a ton of fans out there that love that character. And so he's probably going to be on our short list of 2025. And that's fine. Like, it's not really about me anyway.
Right. It's whatever the people.
I think the one thing that I enjoyed doing more than anything was the 4-pack of The Exorcist. We did.
That was awesome. Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with the 2 priest designs to make sure that they kind of hit their mark. That's what I like. That's what I love about doing this, is the sculpting part of it. Because once the figure's done for me, it's crazy, because I'll have, you know, I actually use, have you ever seen sewing bobbins? They make a rack that you keep your bobbins on. Well, mine are designed, that's what I've bought. And so all of the holes in the heads that I use fit those bobbins. So I'll have rows and rows of heads.
That's pretty cool.
And they go through these, you know, airbrush, and then detail pass, and then fine detail, and then they get assembled. So,
well, you do amazing work.
I appreciate it.
Are the figures the most popular? And then
the figures are pretty much the business. And the reason is because we do so many. You know, we launch pre-orders every month. We're fulfilling the pre-orders from the previous month, the month that we're releasing the new. So it's this continuous work. what I like to do is recently I did a handful of designs in the bust quarter scale. We have a Jerry Dandridge, the 2018 Myers, and the I think it was a 2007, the Rob Zombie version of Myers. One of the things that I want to come back to this year, because it's a huge, the fan base loves it, doing it in a quarter scale, is probably the Cenobites from Hellraiser.
Yeah.
The only reason why I haven't done figures of those is because, one, there's a lot of figures out there.
Mm-hmm.
Two, Pinhead is a challenge.
Sure.
Not so much the design, because I've done him, I've done sculpts of him several times, but at the scale, when you're talking about 8-inch, it's very hard to make sure that you're, one, giving someone something that's not just going to fall apart. I don't want pins breaking. Right. And the only other way to do that is to use actual pins. And there's some 140 pins that's just not practical for me to do. I'd have to charge $300 a figure just to assemble them.
Sure. Yeah, that's crazy. But that would be a pretty cool 3-pack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cenobites. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I know the Fright Night 4-pack did really well too.
Absolutely. Yeah,
that came out great.
Those went very fast. We and again, that was another one. The Billy Cole character had never really been done in any form, and so I just wanted to make sure, because I just released the shark face version of Amy, so I didn't want to include her in the 4-pack, and I was like, that's the guy that needs some love, because everybody's had a figure done but him.
Yeah, I have heard.
And I've never met him, but I hear he's a super nice guy at the conventions.
He is very nice. We had that one here.
Yeah.
Here. And then this one I thought came out really great too.
Oh yeah, Ellie was one of my favorites. That was a good one. Yeah,
this is really good likeness. Came out amazing.
I like the eyes.
The eyes.
The trick to most of these are in the eyes.
Yeah. Can you tell us about some other future stuff?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I went over a few.
Yeah.
Right now we're getting ready to do a couple of 1/6 scale releases. Those will come in the next couple of months. I really don't want to give away the characters yet.
Okay.
I like doing that. When the time comes, I'll throw some stuff out there just to give people a teaser. Just because I'm still in concept, and if I decide to change my mind, I can.
Sure.
And
when is that next launch?
One will be coming later this month.
This month? Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
So you usually come out with 3 at a time?
Typically, yeah. Last month we only did 2 for this month. That was the Lipstick Face Demon and Psycho Head. And that's just because December, the holiday season, getting into New Year's, it's really tough. Because I take a little bit of time off. It's the only time I shut down. We usually close from around the 15th or 16th through like the 4th of January. So literally I'm just getting back into the flow of work for the new year, which
you need a break.
Because, yeah, but it's tough because I know the fan base starves for this stuff, but also I try to do that too, because I know when people Christmas shopping and things like that, they don't really want to feel like they need to commit to buying figures. Right. Especially if you have children and things like that. So I know it can be tough.
Was the Art the Clown one of your biggest sellout, like fast sales?
No? Him, the 2-pack Barlow. I think the fastest one ever was probably the Jason Takes Manhattan figure we did, and that's an older figure. I would do that completely different now than I did originally. But it flew. Like I think it was 20 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. It blew my mind that day. But I think it was because there really had never been anything for him.
True.
And again, there's some things on that figure, especially the masking, not necessarily the design, but the mask itself. I've come up with different, I've learned things as I've gone along. Originally, when I did some of the Jason figures, the mask was kind of formed, and you could take it off, but it had plastic instead of a band. And now when I design them, I'm using a stretch cord band that it's flat, so you can really get your details and stuff in that. And the mask goes off and on really, really easy that way. And then I don't have to worry about, plastic breaking. So there's little things that I've learned over the years not to do. And it, we're not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I am, however, really particular about making sure I take care of people. So, anytime anybody's had any problems, I try to make sure that we go overboard and make sure they're good, because without them, there is no us.
Right.
So
quality control
without the fan base. And I don't think people really understand that from my perspective as an artist. I'm going to do this whether I had an audience or not. The fact that I have one just makes me stay on my toes even more so, because I don't want to disappoint people.
Do you have any memories from, like, any stories from when you've gone to a show and you've showed one of these to the actual?
Oh, yeah. So I did one of the last years that they were doing their convention. There was a company, Scares That Care. I'm sure you've heard of them. They used to do a show in Williamsburg, Virginia every year. Pruitt Taylor Vince. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he played if you've seen the movie Constantine, he plays the priest.
Okay.
He's been in a ton of films. He was in the movie Identity with John Cusack. I knew he was going to be at the show, and I wanted to do a character that wasn't like a headliner, for instance, Right. So I made like 10 of those figures and got to the show. And one of the guys that's a friend of mine from Virginia came over, and he was buying his, and I gave him the one for Pruitt from us to take to him when he was getting his signed. And he did. And the next thing you know, Pruitt comes into the vendor room and he's looking all around, and he spots our table. He sees my logo on the table and sprints over there. And I thought he was going to cry. He said, "I'm an effing action figure."
That's awesome.
It was just great. Like, oh,
you love that.
But yeah, that kind of stuff is fun. The other one was Brad Greenquist at Creature Feature. I did Pascal from Pet Cemetery and gave him a figure. And he was just floored. Like, it's really cool for those guys, because, a lot of these guys, the only time they'll ever see themselves in that form, because of the types of films that were made. Growing up in the early 80s, they didn't make, the only thing you got horror related was Universal Monsters.
Right.
They didn't make figures based on slashers. They just didn't do it.
No.
I mean, in fact, I'm not sure when that actually started. To be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure when that genre kind of kicked into, like NECA and Mego and all these companies that started doing them.
Maybe like the 90s,
maybe
2000s. Yeah.
I know you could get like garage kits and things like that you could build even from movies like Days of the Dead and things like that. But as far as going into a store and finding merchandise like that for horror films, it's crazy how much it's changed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm glad it did. I really am, because a lot of those films deserve movies like Madman. That's not, you don't have
the burning.
It's not a mass-produced product that you could build, right?
Right.
But there is enough of a fan base and a fan following that they're trying to make a new film. And I think they should. I think they will, and I think it'll be successful. Just because the core group of people are involved in this from the original. But that's got a cult following,
Yes.
The movie Maniac with Frank Zito, was that Joe Spinell that played that role. I did that figure. It flew off the shelf. I'm actually going to be doing, so we started this line called the Versus line, and we tested it. The first one we released was Cropsey versus Tourist Trap. And that was successful. I still have a few of them I need to build, because we had a handful left that I just never got a chance to finish building them. But so we're going to do that again, another Versus, at least one or two this year, where it's maybe some characters that we did early on versus a new character from, it could be Maniac versus the Prowler. You don't know, whatever cool. We decide to do, where you got one versus the other. Like, are you ever going to see a Michael Myers versus Jason?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, there's so much that can be done.
Endless. Yeah.
The Horror Collective is great because we've been doing actors. I think the first one we did was Dick Warlock.
Yep.
That was a fun project. And then it was Kane Hodder, now
And,
Robert
yeah.
Englund, and we're now doing
Funny, yeah.
Bill Moseley. Yeah. I
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoy working on those,
My
and
goodness,
I
yeah.
like them because they're very limited. It's privately commissioned. Typically, the actor is going to get one, which I think is great.
Yes.
And the guy that kind of runs that is awesome too. Like TJ's awesome.
TJ's
Like,
great. Yep.
yeah. I met those guys last year at Creature Feature. They came to the show, and him. I know Lauren and Chris will be at Creature Feature this year, which I'm looking.
They'll be vending
there. That'll be. They're going to have a great time. They'll do fantastic there too.
And you'll be there vending.
Yeah, I've been vending there since 20. The only year we didn't go was 2020, and that was because they shut it down that year. So, I told Craig and his wife Sandy, they run that. They do a phenomenal job there. They need more press, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't think they get near enough press for what it is that they do. They've been at the same hotel. They have the same deals. They work with the cinema that's across the street, basically from where they're at. It's walking distance from the hotel. All of the celebrities that I've met that have gone to that show always enjoy themselves. Like it's never
it's like never a fun show.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you can go with your family during the day, and if you want to be an adult at night, especially on Saturday night, everybody has a blast. They do karaoke and all kinds. I mean, it's a wonderful time.
That's cool.
But yeah, I met Fred and all those guys last year there. It was awesome.
Do you think you would do a 2-pack from the Substance?
Possibly.
Ooh. Have you seen that?
No, but I know the character.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I'll give you, I love Hellraiser. The characters.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not a huge Hellraiser movie fan.
Right.
Same thing with, like, I tell this people all the time, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Terrifier. I love the character designs of a lot of those films. I'm just not a big movie guy when it comes to those types of films. Jason, I've seen every Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all that. I don't watch a whole lot of those movies anymore unless there's something really new that strikes me.
Sure.
But
the characters are cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of what I look at, when I'm in those films. I still, you mentioned there are some grails that I'd like to release. One is, I've done David and Michael from the Lost Boys. I want to do the tribe. I'd like to do the entire tribe. Like,
that'd be great.
The 4 vampires. I'd love to do the Frog Brothers. The 2 characters that I want to do more than anything, and I've just got to get the design work. It's not really the design of the characters more than it is the design of the clothing. I want to make sure that's right. Is from American Werewolf in London. I did a mid-transformation David last year, early last year, I think it was. And it went really well too. Like, everybody loved that. It's one of the only, that one and probably the Gillman from Monster Squad. That was another set that I really enjoyed doing. Because I just love the characters that were designed for that film. But those I actually built the entire bodies for, did the assemblies here. But that's challenging. You want to make sure that you're giving somebody something that's not going to fall apart. It's and that's some of the restrictions that you have with 3D printing today. They keep changing material, so it's getting better and better, where you can get closer to like an injection molded type plastic. They're not there yet with it, just because of the inherent problem you have with curing. These are UV cured resins, so the more they're exposed, the more they want to cure. So you have to make sure you're coating them and doing things correctly when you're done. Outside of that, there's thousands of figures that can still be done. So
sure. It seems like a lot more work than we actually know.
Well, I mean,
than we think.
And I don't blame fans for that at all, because as a consumer of those things, a collector, you just want the product. I don't mind. I'm one of those guys that I don't mind sharing processes with anybody. If I know, let me rephrase that. I don't mind sharing my processes with anybody that I think is really trying to get into something or do something good. I'm not one that hides from anything when it comes to how I go about the things that I do. If I know that there's a way to make it faster and better for you, I tell you, you know. And there's a handful of artists that I've collaborated with on stuff like that. You know, we'll have a conversation like, hey, have you tried this material? It works really good. I'm a firm believer in that. Everybody grows when you do that, because the better every artist is at putting out better and better product, it makes everybody around you have to work that much more to make sure that they're keeping up, because you want good products out there.
That's true.
I also hate seeing people get scammed. You know, I look on, we're on the group pages, and you see people, you know, that have paid for something that never got shipped, and the person's just giving them a runaround. I can't stand seeing that, because I'm in that, you know, I'm in the commission business too. So I hate that.
Sure. Well, thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
Do you do them all yourself, or do you have anyone help you?
No, the last employee I had was my daughter, and my daughter's an excellent painter. But what I do is very isolated. You know, you're in a room by yourself. It's and it's not for everybody. You know, when I tried to work with different people at different times for different things, and what I found is nobody treats your business like you treat it.
100%.
It's just and I can't expect someone to care the way I care. So there, you know, when you have errors and things like that shouldn't have happened, I have to take responsibility for that. And I feel like if I'm going to do that, then I need to be in control of it. So yeah, right now, today, from concept, sculpting, design, clothing, outside of clothing, I can source every now and then. I can source some good stuff that works really well. You know, pants and jeans and things like that. Those are things that I can usually get without much trouble. When you get into the design cloth aspect of it, then I had to become a seamstress. You know, that's the one thing that's happened over the last probably 8 years, is there's been a lot of growth in other areas outside of just sculpting and painting. The painting process got better. You're taking a little bit more risk on how I'm doing some of my dry brushing techniques and things like that. So I enjoy that. I also have a good group of fan base that I consider friends of mine, that when I'm doing something, I'll share with them, just because they're the person collecting. Is this what you'd like to see? Is this it? You know, because I don't want anybody just to tell me what I want to hear, because that doesn't help me grow. If you go, hey man, that doesn't look quite right, at least I know that if you don't think it looks quite right, then I need to fix it.
Right.
So that's always cool. Sorry about that.
I hope we see a sick head from 31. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And also Pearl wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah. I think we're going to try to go through the majority of that crew.
Okay.
Well, a couple of them, like the little guy's going to have to be in probably a twin pack as an accessory, and he'll probably be more of a sculpture instead of an articulated body. That's kind of how I handled when we did Dead Alive. Was the little baby character, instead of trying to do a articulated figure, it's so small, I just did it in a statue form and painted it. Put all my effort into the lawnmower and in the main character. So
smart, very smart. Okay, well, I appreciate your time, and thank you for doing the amazing figures that you do, and the busts and everything, and the statues. And I think I speak for the horror community that we love your product, and we're a big fan of what you do.
Well, so I really appreciate all of you guys too, man. I can't say that enough. There is no evil entities without the fan base. So I really appreciate everybody.
So Creature Feature, they can see you next?
Yep. March 28th through the 30th. We'll be there all weekend.
Okay. Thank you again for doing this. Yeah. Go ahead.
Absolutely, man. Thanks a lot, John. Have a great day.
All right. You too. Enjoy the football.
I'm going to go see what's going on.
All right. Thanks, Luke.
Good one.